All right, hey guys, Sam with you here Friday morning, January 19th. Seems like a good day to get an update on Bitcoin. So, the question is, of course, is the low in? Well, let's dig into that and see what we can find. I think it's my thought would be it's a bit too early to call that a hard low. It definitely is a significant low. As to whether or not the correction is over here, we have a couple of different scenarios here. So let's just review a little bit. Now, I did this just the other day here, and this is just to bring you back to this. Here's a daily chart on Bitcoin on Bitstamp, so you can see as I labeled it the other day. Right? So we have our one. So I've gone all the way back here to, what do we go to? 2013, where we get our 1, 2, and operating on the assumption that that's our 1, this is our 2, and there's some good reasons for that. As I think I've shown you before, I'll just zoom in here. So this was incredibly technical here. So we operating on the assumption here that our 3 and our 4 is in, that this is a 2. You'll recall, and this is important. That's why I make the point of doing this review. We see right here. From that swing here, we went right into the pocket, right? So do you see this? If I blow this up even more so, we go literally into the golden zone. It's when it was probably the best trade of 2017, right into the golden pocket. Not only do we get into the golden zone on the fib pull, but we get right into the pocket on the Vegas wave, right? It just simply does not get better than that, right? So there we go. Buys at what was that, 29.56, and then we know the rest of the story. So let me pull out and show you why that's important. If we're if we're operating on the assumption that's a 1, that's a 2, we know a 2 can be anywhere from the 50 to the 786, so that would make it an absolutely perfect 2, right? So then we get the massive 2017 move. So we're so far beyond these, we can just pull these off. So with that little bit of history reviewed, clearly this is a 3 now. So we do this probably be no surprise here. So anyone who's looked at a chart in the last day or two. So we go right up to our 3, and where do we go? Exactly the same spot. So we go into the golden zone here, in between the Vegas wave, and we get a very technical low. Is it done? Is it done? Well, there's a few other things we can look at there. So, clearly we can get an ABC out of this, right? So we get a very nice textbook ABC. Let me lower that degree, and we can go down. We'll go down there. Okay, so we get a nice ABC into that for potentially a pivot low for the 4. Now that could be it. That could be it. But a closer look at it, we've got to allow for, as I will often suggest, you want to allow for an alternate count that would take into account with this. And I'm going to show you this was a very technical low. But are we complete? Do we have enough here to say, okay, good, we're in the clear here, and now we're off to put in that 5th, which if we just look up here, so here would be the algo target. I can't even find my 5. Where is my 5? Way over here. Let's get it back up here. Okay, so there would be our 5 up here at, we call that 23,500. Okay, so potentially, no doubt, that's potentially a good low. But we got to dig a little bit deeper to really, qualify it and get all of the ingredients we look for. So just off the daily, again, identical to what we saw here, technically identical, and certainly within. From an Elliott count, that looks gorgeous, right, on the daily. So we're going to just dig a little bit closer and make sure that we don't have an alternate scenario that could push this either below that, right? So because we don't invalidate this count until we take out this wave 1 high, right? So there could certainly be another push down to create a 4. We could break this. That would surprise me. We could double bottom. We could have the infamous truncated C wave here that finishes relative to what we see here. We could have a double bottom. We could come back and test this low. All sorts of possibilities. So we got to dig a little bit deeper, to be really confident about how aggressively we want to be buying in here. But this alone, certainly, if you just saw that, and you went, again, right, so you went below 10,000. So if nothing else, you could just say, wow, Bitcoin below 10,000, that is certainly on sale. So I'm going to throw in a buy here on the assumption that whether or not that's the hard low, that we shouldn't go too much beyond that. Yeah, that's a reasonable line of thinking. We could do something like this. We could throw a channel on this, working from the 2 here. If I get my third into that channel, and then, when do we get there? Are we getting there? It's just no way to know. We could also look at this from an Elliott count and say, okay, well, if this is I'm going to go to the absolute low here. Well, I guess we can't do it because the scaling is too off. So let me just work into that. Because the scaling is so high, we're far beyond it. So let me show you where I have just a few points of concern. So let me take this off, and we're going to go down to a smaller time frame. So let me get rid of that. So that's the hypothesis here for the first count. Okay, but we got to dig a little bit into that C wave to see what we can see. So here I've got it. This is the let's see. I have the hourly here. Now, I did buy this. Members bought this. This was a trade that we stalked it, watched it, measured it. There was just an unusually high number of technical indicators. There was a large degree of confluence there on that low, which I'm going to take you through. So let me just pull some of this off here. So first thing we have, so here's the count on a larger degree. So this is a little confusing if you're not used to looking at Elliott waves. So we have a very complex correction here. So the idea that we're in a fourth is very consistent, and given what I just showed you on the daily, should be no surprise that this kind of complexity we're experiencing in the fourth as we deal with some of these issues and the challenge here of getting through a correction and then stabilizing and then moving off towards new highs. So if we look here, it's perfect technical trading. So we get on so just so you see what I'm trying to show you here, this on the larger degree here, right? So if you look at it, we have certainly waves within waves. So we have the A, the B, and the C, but we have a lot of complexity between it. So we get this 3-wave A here. So I'll just do it again so you can kind of see how this all fits together. So remember, it's waves within waves. So we get our sharp A wave down, then we get a 3-wave correction into this A wave, a 3-wave correction into this B wave, and we finish a perfect 5-wave structure to finish the C wave. You see that? So I get an ABC 3-wave structure to complete my larger degree B wave. And now we're going down, and the question is, have we completed here for the C, or do we potentially have another push down to finish this? Do you see how cleanly we had this 5-wave structure here into this C wave here? Well, we don't yet have a clear, clean 5-wave structure into this potential C. If this is our low, and it may be, I mean, it works, but you have to allow for the possibility that there's one more push down here to complete this 5-wave structure in the very large in blue here of that degree. Right? That would certainly be consistent if we think back to the daily. That would certainly work, and certainly would be consistent with what we're seeing. So this is where we have question marks. Now, let me take some of those waves off. I just wanted to be sure that you got a sense of where we are in the larger structure of things and how it fits together from an Elliott count. Okay, so here, let me bring this back down here. So this was all just perfectly technical. So a couple of things we can do right off the bat. So let's start digging into this low. So pulling from my absolute high here to my low. Okay, so that's the first thing. So here's the algo target. Here's the pull. We know a B wave here. A B wave can be anywhere from the 50 to the 786. Those are the probability zones. We get the 618 into the golden zone right here. First time down. There was potential, right? So all the potential was there that this was going to move further, and we'd have a traditional ABC. We don't get it. We get the pushback up here in a perfect 5-wave structure, and we get to and through the 618 and 65 pocket here. As we were perfect here, we get through. We get a little chop. We don't push the 786, and then we fall over. And this has been the big correction. We'll take note here of where the algo target is. Right? So, I mean, it's almost to the tick. So the algorithms that sold it here, so this reaction here is profit taking from the algorithms. Not to mention, right, remember on the daily that we have algorithms that would be buyers here just off of the 618 right here. Okay, so we have So if I put that up in context, you can see this. It was just technically as good as you get. You just can't be any better than that. So that's the that's the algo double, right? So we have those that sold here taking profit on the negative 23.6, and then you have the buyers. So they essentially they reverse and buy. They take profit. That profit, by taking profit, they're buying, and then they're buying yet again by buying off of the 618. So you have this was about as technical a pivot as you can get on the larger degree. But that doesn't mean that we're out of the woods here yet. Very technical, but we certainly have the potential for one more push down. And again, we just could come right back down and test that low. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Given how severe that correction was, it might need another test before we're sure, and any more weak hands are blown out of the market before we push back up. Here's the next target. Right? So let's go back to the hourly. I just want to make that point that you had just a huge amount of technical confluence there. Well, now in addition here, right, so we have this potentially one wave. We have a shallow two. So there are a few question marks in here because we're outside of the typical wave relationships that you'd be looking for. So if we work on the assumption that that's our one wave, well, the two is shallow. Now we know that's maybe approximately, I shouldn't say maybe, approximately 12 to 15% of wave twos will be that shallow. That's unusually shallow for a second wave, but down we go. So if we look at that and say, okay, if that is my second, which makes sense given the reaction that we saw, well, then I'm going to start measuring for a potential third down here. And I'm looking for subdivision within that third to give me confidence that I'm complete down here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the length of the one wave, and I'm going to project it from the two. Okay, well here's 100, right? So you can see the first pivot that we get here that turns out to be the third within that subdivision goes right to 100 to the tick. We come down here and we're in between here. We don't quite make the 1272 square root of 1618. We have this zone down here that that's something to be conscious of. That's the 1618, which wouldn't surprise me. Now look at that number. That's 7390. Right? So it makes me pause and yes, it was very technical on the daily, but I don't love what I'm seeing here to be highly confident that we have a hard low in. So now we go and we break it down even further. So if I dig into that third a little bit more, well, I get a 1, 2, I hear potentially 3, 4. Now let's check some of that. So from the 2 here, it goes deep. Right, so we get actually through the 786, which is deep for a 2. It's a push to try and get new highs. We don't get it. We come down here and we're all the way to and through the negative 618. So that's the extreme. So then we look. Let's check. Well, if that's our 3, which certainly plays, then we look for the relationship between the 2 and the 3. The 4 goes right to the 38, highest probability zone for a fourth. We come down. Now look at the algo target. Right? You see, so we're lining up algo targets. If you'll recall, if I zoom back out, the larger degree, let me get it for you. So look at this confluence that we get here, right? So if I pull from this high to this low, you see the perfect overlap. Okay, so that's not to be, I promise you Algo's bought it there, right? So I bought it there. Members in the room, we sat and we stalked that. I mean, it was just perfectly technical. Yeah, that overlap that's actually unusual for it to be literally on top of itself. So that's a no question. That's a buy. Add to it into the golden zone on the daily. That's a must buy. Now, and we've made money there, so that's been a good trade. So good. There's the reaction you'd expect, but are we complete? Well, right. It remains to be seen. So additionally, there was even more in here. So if I blow this back up again, just to show you how this is if you're a technician, this is a trade you simply have to take. Additionally, within this subdivision here, so I'm going to go down to the 15-minute to make the point and show you how you can get this technical confluence that is staggering, how accurate it can be. So here's our fifth. So within that, so here now I'm down to the 15-minute. So if this is a 4, we're looking for 5 waves into the fifth. the fifth of it, question mark as to what wave it is. So we get a 3, 4, and if I come down here for the 5. Now, is that technical? I'm all the way down to the 15-minute. So let's look here. So if I pull from my 2 to my 3, the 4 goes to the 50, right? Not unusual. Here's the negative 618, right? An extreme and something you would anticipate. Here's the negative 23 on that smaller time frame from the 3rd to the 4th, but we get here's the negative 618 lining up with it. Now, in addition to that, I'm going to measure the length of my 1 wave, and I'm going to project it from my 4th, looking for that bottom. Here's the 1272, right? You see that? So I've got this huge cluster down here. Huge cluster. So, you got to look at that and say that's a lot of things stacking up. I think that we had one more down here that was worth noting. So if we look here and we take the length of this one and I project it from the 4 here, look at this. We get, here's the highest probability zone right here between the 1618 and the 175. Now look at this massive confluence we get here of technical pivots, relationships, pattern, price. I mean, that's a must buy. It's just absolutely a must buy. So we buy it and we get the reaction we're looking for. But are we done? Well, so again, for members, we took some profit up here because we anticipating that it rolls over. Now, are we rolling over into a 2 and we're going up, or are we rolling over into something else? Potentially, do we have the absolute low here, or do we have the 3rd and we're putting in a complex 4 before we push down to test this low again? So I got to pull back out to show you what I mean by that and why we want to be alert to that possibility. So let me look here now. So looking on the larger degree. So here's our 1, here's our 2, down we go. We get perfect subdivision into a pivot low here. So you have to allow for the possibility that we have just a 3rd in here and that we're going into complexity for a 4th. Well, how do we know? When do we relax on that pivot and invalidate the potential for this to be a 4th going down to lead to a 5th, right? Where's my 5th? Down here. When can we take that off the board and no longer worry about that? Well, we're going to need price to come substantially higher to get, really, we got to get beyond the 2. So we got to get up here to take that out, to really be sure that we have a good low, and that's 14,670. Now that's a ways off. So we have to allow for this. So let me now that I've kind of built the case around that pivot, the question is now, is that the pivot low? Let's take a look here. So let me pull some of this off. We've got all of this marked just so you can follow it. Okay, we got all that identified, so we can clear it up a little bit. Okay, so we get exactly what we're looking for here. We get a 5-wave reaction. So if let's go down to the 15-minute. If I open it up, we get just what we're looking for, just what we want to see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, is that a 1 or is it an A wave? Well, how would we know? We don't know. We don't know. You can't be definitive about it because that could certainly be an A wave of a correction on a larger degree. So let me put that in context so you can see it. So if we have to allow for the possibility that this is just our 3rd and we've got a 4th going in here. So the first thing we're going to do is measure where that is likely to go. So if this is my 2 up here and this is my 3, okay, here's my extremes for a 4th would be 5th to the 618. That's an extreme for a 4th. Here's my invalidation point of this as an impulse wave. There's my wave 1 just on the other side of the 65. Now, right, so as an Elliott trader, we know that we can finish with an ending diagonal. We could have a diagonal here, so we could overlap here. So I'm telling you, we don't invalidate until we get above the 2, and then we're absolutely in the clear. So we have the possibility. So one possibility is 1, we're putting in a 2, the low is in, and we're going to start off, and so that would look like this. So here would be that scenario. So if I put the wave on it. Okay, so that's what bulls would be hoping for, right? So here's the 1. We're putting in the ABC, We've come right to where you'd anticipate it. Here's the 50 to the 618. No surprise that we hit resistance at the 50. And now we're starting to roll over. So here's the potential. Let me put the wave on that so you can kind of follow along here. I know it's hard to see it when it's not your monitor. Okay, so here, if we're going down, this certainly is a contender. So if this is an ABC of the second, then off we go for the third, and we get enough distance from this that we can, start to lean into this count. But the other scenario here is, let me take that off just so you're clear on why we have to have an alternate count. Because it's 5 waves, it could very easily be this. We could have just an A, we're putting in the B, we're going to go up again for a C, which is why we're looking to be buyers down here. But that could very well be an A, B, C of a larger correction to complete this 3, 4, and then down we go for a 5. So, amongst members looking here, and myself included, now we've already banked some profit here because of this move here. So, not a bad trade. We almost got the tick low. We were buyers, between 92 and 93, caught it, took some profit up here at 11.9. That's not a bad trade, right? But we may be wrong about this low, but that doesn't. Just buying into an A wave or a 1 wave, off of this reaction. Nice little trade we got. So, but, lighten up the load, which we did. So I did as well. Took some profit here. So good. You want to bank that. So now we start, the inevitable correction has begun. We're correcting this, and we'll correct it in 3. There, I've seen some Elliott counts on this that just have this as the 4, but that if you're going to get down into the nitty-gritty of it, that doesn't play as a 4 because it's a 5-wave structure. It could potentially be an A, and then we go down for this 3-wave, and then we have to see the reaction. Here's what makes it so difficult and challenging, and just welcome to trading. We could move down here. So first thing we have to do is hold this low. So this low comes down, and a B is a challenge to get to a new low. So the B has to come down here. We know it could go as deep as the 786, but we'd be looking for support between the 50 and the 618. Right? So Bitcoin loves the 618. It loves the golden box here between 618 and 65. They love it. So that's a likely contender. So is this a long? Absolutely, that's a long. Why would that not be a long? Primary count or alternate count, that's a buy. That's a buy because you're assuming that this 5-wave structure here that is clearly carved out is going to correct in a 3. But we don't know if it's a 2 or a B. We don't know. Now, if this move here, right? This would be the likely place to take profit here. We would anticipate resistance. Here's the algo target just on the other side of the 65. Now I'm hypothetical down here. I don't know where this is going to stop. But if we enter here at the 618, you'd have to give it the other side of the 78. I'd give it that. So what do you got there? That's 3.9 to 1. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. That's about what we made here. Right, but we were able to be fairly tight with that stop because we could be just on the other side of the 65. Think back to the daily. So 1, is it a B? Then we go up here. So what do we want to see here? We want to see 5-wave subdivision into this leg. We definitely want to see that. But then yet again, we still can't qualify that as a third, or it can't be determined whether it's a third wave as a 1, 2, 3, or if it's a C wave because they're both going to have 5-wave subdivision if they're going to subdivide the way we'd like to see it. So you don't know, but it's still a buy. Regardless of what this ends up being, that's still a buy. All right. That doesn't mean it. Listen. It doesn't mean you wouldn't get stopped out. It doesn't mean we don't go down. It's just if you're playing the odds, which is all trading is, the odds are that we're just correcting this move. So this stays as an internal retracement to this swing low to that swing high, an internal retracement, and then we're looking to get an external retracement beyond this high to complete. Now, where does it complete? We don't know. If it completes up here, we're in the clear because then we've got a 1, 2, 3. Then we wait for the 4 and we buy again. But there's no way to know. Absolutely no way to know here. All right, so that's the reality of it. So buyer here, we're looking for a punchy trade. This is not, buy it and hold it. Let me rephrase. You could do that, but that's not what I'm going to do. I would buy it here, and I'd be looking for reaction here, knowing that the possibility is still there for that to play as a 4 and then come down as our 5th down here. All right? We just got to wait and see. So next opportunity right here. We'll wait and see what happens here. Right? If we get this here, if it's offered here, and we get the reaction we're looking for, I want to see 5 waves in that. But then, what's next? So if you pull all of that back out, now let's just give it some perspective. So let me go to a 4-hour. See if that clears up for you at all. Okay, so I'm going to clear some of this out so you can actually see the chart. So you can see what I'm kind of trying to caution you about. Okay, so if we look at that. Now we say, okay, there's an A, there's a B. Now I'm looking for a 5-wave subdivision in my C. Let me get all this stuff out of here. Do you see what I'm saying? Until we take out this pivot here, this still could play as a 5-wave structure that would bring us down. One more time. We don't know where that's going to be, but that is still absolutely a possible count that plays. Doesn't invalidate. Now here's the last thing I put on this. Right? So we want to check the geometry. So if I go to my A low and I go up to my B, do I get anything there? Well, I definitely don't like that. Right? So if you're a bull, you don't want to see that. So we'll check the alternate. We check 2 ways. So I would go to the shift and look for that. Right, see, we didn't quite get there on this move. We didn't quite get there. So potentially lower parallel come down here. This would be a test. That's one possibility. We could go to the modified shift. Right, it's going to look like a channel. So if I leave that up here, so if I put a channel on that, you see it's very, very similar. So if I do that, you see how modified shift is identical to a channel. So potentially one more push down here to catch the lower side of the channel. That would complete the 5-wave structure. Now we look down here. So yet again, same process, just now on a different time frame. That's the 1 and that's the 2. Look over here. Okay, here's the 1618, 175 box. Wouldn't surprise me. We have to be prepared for it. So if we get that, okay, so if you were a buyer here and we got the little move here and it rolled over, I'm not saying to short it. I will not be short. I don't short Bitcoin. I at least at this phase of where Bitcoin is, I don't short Bitcoin. So if we get that, I'm not saying be a seller. What I'm saying is that's a good place if we get what we're looking for here for this potential move up here off of what is either a 2 or a B. If we get that and then we get the rollover. So we want to bank a little profit here. Next buying opportunity is down here. That's 70, call it the 618 is 74. Call it 74, 7,500. That's Bitcoin on sale. Now I know that's a long way to go. This is a long video. I usually don't like to go this long, but there's enough here that you really got to take a look at this and consider where we could be going. So the other thing you got to look at here, look how the median line has affected this on the way down. All right, so I'm going to take the channel off. So we'll just go to the median line. Let me take that off. Okay, so here's the first. We tap it, reaction. Right through it, come back to it. Right, so we've come back to it here. We're hovering around it. Now are we going down there? So if I clean this up a little bit, can you see it? All right, do you see that? So is this our 4? Right. Hovering. Down, up. Do we do this? That median line has certainly played a role here. Ping through it. We don't make the lower parallel. Back to it. Wait and see. But that, oh man, that's back the truck up if we get offered down there. It's not that I'm rooting for it. It's not that I want to see that. But if we were to see that, well, I'd be a buyer there myself. All right, guys, I'm sorry to go so long on that one, but that just needed more attention. Okay, that's a wrap on that one.